Well, I'm Eric Genrich, and I'm inspired by the people of Green Bay.
All right, and welcome to the Lantern Podcast, a show out of Good Cause Productions that is produced and promoted by students right here at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and I have another fantastic guest for you today. He's been the mayor of Green Bay, Wisconsin since 2019, and for the 6 years before that, he was the rep for Wisconsin's 90th Assembly District. He studied history and sociology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and has a master's degree in library and information sciences from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Please welcome Mayor Eric Genrich. Okay, so let's start there, unpack that. What is it about the people of Green Bay who inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to live in the city of Green Bay. The bulk of my life was born and raised here. Went down to Madison to go to school and work for a bit, but otherwise have been in Green Bay. And I just think we're very fortunate in the sense that we have so many caring and compassionate, creative people. We have such a strong industrial background, so like a really proud sort of working class culture and heritage, but we're also open to so many different new ideas and different ways of doing things, especially these days. I think we've really kind of come into our own in that respect. So I mean, there's just so many great people doing amazing things that you've become acquainted with here at the university, but also in the community, and just feel very fortunate to be able to have an excuse to be curious every day, and to have that privilege to reach out to so many interesting people doing cool things.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes where that industriousness comes from, because you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a culture of hard work. There's a culture of entrepreneurship here that's really fascinating when you think about and not just in Green Bay, but across northeastern Wisconsin. When you think about startups and all these different things, and I mean, even the existence of the Packers is such an interesting sort of cultural phenomenon. And I wonder sort of what drove that, and if you have thoughts about what drove that culture. And how we got this way. Right.
Yeah, that's a big question, a good question. I think some of it has to do with our immigrant heritage, which is true of the United States in general, right? A nation of immigrants by and large. And I think that has something to do with it as well. Wisconsin, generally speaking, has a pretty strong German influence. So when it comes to, heavy industry and engineering and things of that nature, I think that's partially where that comes through. But, different waves of immigrants coming to Northeast Wisconsin, from, Belgians to Germans to more recent times, Hispanic immigrants, Mexicans primarily. I think that's, where some of that comes from, that entrepreneurial spirit, people coming here, forming their own businesses, but also plugging into, established industries and things.
Yeah. So you said you've lived here most of your life. You're born and raised. Born and raised here. Went to UW-Madison for a little while, and then UW-Milwaukee for a little while.
So
right?
Apologies for going to Madison, but
that's okay.
My dad is a Phoenix. He's a proud graduate.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I think
he disappointed in you?
He didn't express that openly, but yeah, probably a little bit. Occasionally we'll have that rivalry when the basketball teams would play. Although it's been a while since I think one of the last times we played, though, the Phoenix got the best of the Badgers.
There was a big snowstorm that night.
Yeah.
I know, because I didn't go to the game. I thought I was doing the responsible thing, staying home, and I regretted it.
Yeah, you probably should have been there for that one. But yeah. So my dad's, he's got that UWGB background, and obviously really, really proud of this institution.
Yeah. So when you went to college, was public service part of your calling at the time? What were you thinking was your goal?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, I had taken at least one course in high school, is like comparative political systems. Me and like 5 other kids or something. So there was like a little bit of an interest in high school in politics, and kind of followed the presidential election. I think '96 would have been the big one when I was going to school in high school. But had not really been involved to a great extent in politics until I got down to Madison and got involved at the local level down there. So it kind of comes full circle with my position these days. But that was really my first involvement, was at the local level, Dane County, Madison, working on housing affordability issues So one of the new policies that had been adopted back then was something to prohibit landlords from discriminating against people based on source of income. So essentially Section 8 housing, is a voucher subsidy that low-income folks are sometimes eligible for. And so I was involved in that project and really was interested in that work, was trying to kind of figure out what else I might be able to gain some experience with. And so I was doing some research into who my state elected officials were, those from Green Bay, and recognized that Senator Hansen had just been, this is kind of fast forwarding to the year 2000, 2001, had just been elected as a state senator from this area, and was really intrigued by kind of his background and interest in increasing the minimum wage, creating more of a living wage in the state of Wisconsin, and so applied for a part-time position in his office and was fortunate to be able to get hired. And then, after graduation, began working for him full-time. And so that's kind of where things started by and large, was, some of that local exposure in Madison and then the state work with Senator Hansen.
Okay. So what was the career goal when you were at Madison? Because you studied
history and sociology.
History and sociology.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. So
yeah. So I mean, like a lot of people, I don't think there was a clear. I mean, there are plenty of people that know from very early on exactly the type of career that they want to have. For me, that was not the situation. Went down to Madison and had some thoughts about different options, ended up majoring in history and sociology. And, with liberal arts degrees, there's not necessarily always a very defined path. So, law school is something that I kind of kicked around for a while. But then when I got into Senator Hansen's office, I really did feel like that was a place, where I could kind of explore some career options, and really enjoyed the constituent service, but also like the policy making. That's obviously a big part of politics.
Right. And then went on and worked for Congressman Kagan for a little while. Is that right?
Yeah, I worked for Congressman Kagan for a spell, and simultaneously had been getting a master's degree in library science.
Okay.
Because my wife and I, Emily, who's also born and raised in Green Bay, we had wanted to relocate back here. And so when we were in the process of figuring out how to make that happen, was kind of thinking about like a second career sort of a thing. So got the master's degree in library science, and was thinking that was kind of going to be that next thing. So after I worked for Congressman Kagan, I worked for the Brown County Library for a couple of years. Right. But then Act 10 came down, and that sort of woke a lot of people up, I think, in the state of Wisconsin, and pretty dramatically changed the landscape politically. And so I was in an assembly district that whose incumbent was no longer in that district. The redistricting had occurred at that time as well. And so open seat, nobody really stepping forward to run. So at that point, I decided to run for city assembly. So that was back in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were there for about 6 years, right?
Yeah, 6 years. So 3 terms in the state assembly. Very early on, recognized that the only other elected office I was really interested in would be mayor of the city of Green Bay. And so kind of made that my goal pretty early on in the tenure in the state assembly. And so announced that I was running for that position in 2018. Mayor Schmidt, who had served for 4 terms, had announced that he was not running for re-election. And so shortly thereafter, I announced my intent to do that. And then the election was in 19, been in that spot since.
Okay. So when you think back to that time, one of the questions I'm always interested in with people is whether it's college or early career stuff, is who were the mentors? Who were the people who really jumped out and helped you find your path? Yeah.
So I mentioned Senator Hansen. He was a big one for me. And as somebody who was new to politics at that time,
another alum, by the way.
Yes,
we should highlight that.
Very proud alum.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and he's on campus all the time, still at athletic events and
absolutely
and different things. His granddaughter also works here.
Oh, really? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So she's on campus as well, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he was a huge inspiration for me in a number of different respects. But given kind of his blue collar, like working class background, worked for the city of Green Bay for 20 years, was a parochial school teacher prior to that, but just deeply rooted in the community, and also just like a normal guy, right? And so as somebody who was new to politics, And still, you know, a lot of people have this impression of politics these days for good reason, that it's like, I don't know, these are just like weird people that aren't like the rest of us. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and with Dave, like he's been a regular guy forever. Was an amazing senator for this community, but it was also just normal and connected, and so to me that was somewhat eye opening. Just to recognize that, yeah, there are normal people that run for office and do great things, and so that was kind of eye opening for me.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, Dave in particular is someone I feel like I see all the time.
Yeah.
I just out and about, right? So
Right.
he's on campus, like you said, all the time. I run into him at the grocery store. I run
Right.
into him at like kids soccer games. You know,
Right.
like I think he's got grandkids who play
Yep.
in the same. So I'll see him at games and stuff like that. So you're right. He's just kind of out and about, and I'm not sure people necessarily think that. Like acknowledge that like their elected officials are people who have lives,
Right.
and just live in the community the same way you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just deeply decent, right?
Yeah.
You know, good family guy, you know, has a great network around him. And so, you know, that was just a good, strong message for me as a young person who was interested in politics and recognizing, yeah, normal people do it, but also, you know, there are some really well-intentioned, solid, good people that are in this profession. And so that was really helpful to me.
So I'm thinking about, I mean, that's a big transition, right? You're working at the library, I guess, and this
Yeah.
opportunity comes to you. What was, I mean, it's a big transition, both career-wise, but also family-wise.
Right.
Like, was there any reservation? Were there any concerns? Did was your wife on board?
Yeah.
How did all that go down?
Yeah, definitely on board, but there were some reasons why it wouldn't make sense, right? Like Amelia, who is our second child, who's 13 now, she was only a month old, I think, when I announced that I was running for state assembly. So yeah, you know, very young family. Henry just a couple years older. But you know, my wife was a school teacher, continues to be a school teacher. You know, I was working at the Brown County Library. I'd mentioned Act 10, you know, was this big policy shift that had been made at the state level. It was pretty dramatically affecting, you know, the people that we care about, the places of employment for us, and just dramatically changing the political landscape. And so just felt like, you know, it was the right time to step up and kind of do my part. So that's why we really made the decision to run for assembly.
Well, and that's, you know, thinking too. I mean, that's a job that probably requires some travel, right? You're away
Right.
from home. It's again, a big transition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of stuff was, you know, a huge complicating factor, and would not have been possible really for me to do that job without help from our families, you know, my parents and her parents, you know, super helpful in just taking care of the kids and running them around and helping out where necessary. So that's, you know, that's a big part of making it possible for younger people to get into politics. You know, I'm not so young anymore, but at that time, you know, relatively young professional. And I think that's why you don't see that many, I mean, hopefully more and more young people getting into politics, but they're just real life barriers to public service.
Right.
You know, when you're at the beginning of your career and starting a family, or even mid-career, it can be pretty complicating to do something like that.
Right. So you're coming up on essentially almost 15 years of like public service,
Yeah.
right? So how, when you think about that time, what are some of the things you love about it? What are some of the big moments you've had? But also, what are some of the things that you wish were different?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've always kind of had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with politics, because I think it is, well, it's very easy to hate it, right? Just because of all the obvious things that people see, especially at the national level or even the state level, with you know, the polarization and the constant fighting and the performative element of some of those conflicts. But at the same time, you know, it's the only way that we do big things, good things together as a society. And to me, that's always been the reason why I love it. Because there is so much potential to come together with people who don't necessarily share your viewpoints on everything, to come together on some of those shared goals and make big improvements within the community or the state or, the nation, whatever level you're serving at. So, it can be a struggle, certainly, being in politics. But there's a lot that's really rewarding as well.
So what are some of those things? What are some of the things that you've, the big moments you've had in these last, 15 years or
Right.
nearly 15 years?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough question because especially at the city level, we've thankfully been involved in a number of different efforts that I'm really proud of. One thing going back a few years was reestablishing a relationship with the United Nations. So we have a cooperative governance agreement between the city of Green Bay and the United Nations, which we reformed back in, I think it was 2021, or the tail end of 2020 when we reestablished that relationship. So that was a big one for me and for us, just recognizing the really important role that the nation plays within this community and kind of at a deeper philosophical level, recognizing that, I, as even a local elected official, I swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, and treaty rights are a core aspect of the U.S. Constitution, and felt like, the city of Green Bay and was not really living up to that obligation in a sense. And so reforming that relationship was really important for us. On a smaller scale or kind of different scale, we've had a conservation corps in the city of Green Bay now for a number of years. So that's a collaboration between the city and AmeriCorps.
Okay.
And so that's been a really cool program that's been up and running, I think, since 2022, a little over 3 years at this point. Just doing great things in the community as far as like habitat restoration, removal of invasive species, and as importantly, just giving people a career path, either in high school or in college or people that are kind of like mid-career and trying to figure things out. So, the way to make that happen is with this partnership with AmeriCorps. Now, of course, that's been complicated,
Of course,
in recent months. So City of Green Bay Common Council stepped up to fill the gap when we got some bad news from the federal government saying that they were essentially canceling all these AmeriCorps programs throughout the nation. Thankfully, that's been reversed because of some court action, and we've been able to maintain that program. Okay. But that's another one that has been really inspiring, just to see the kind of people and the quality of the people that are interested in that work, and to see kind of what they've done within the community and will do beyond. Development is a really big part of leading at the local level, at the city level, and so we've done a number of different development projects, especially on the housing side of things. There's a major housing crunch in Green Bay and Wisconsin and across the country. And so we've just been open to being as creative as is necessary to, make different development projects move forward. And one that I was really proud of is a partnership with United Way. They were looking at establishing kind of a larger neighborhood presence. Ultimately ended up relocating their headquarters, but initially started as kind of wanting this neighborhood presence. But anyway, we were able to identify, a parcel that the city owned that they felt would be a good spot for them. But it was a little bit larger than was necessary. And so recognizing our housing needs, we were able to partner them up with a developer from Northeast Wisconsin who was wanting to advance in affordable housing development. And so now United Way has their new headquarters on the corner of Walnut and Roosevelt, kind of in between City Hall and East High on the Near East Side. So offering some, just their typical services as United Way, but really becoming much more embedded within one of our more, disadvantaged neighborhoods within the city of Green Bay. And so just, a really great presence, I think, within that corner of the city. And without their interest and in collaborating with us on that development effort, the affordable housing would not have been possible.
Right.
And so we've got them. We've got 43 units of mixed income, although primarily low income housing within that development. And so just an example of kind of some of the work we've done on the housing front.
Well, and something that feels like a win-win for a lot of different groups. Yeah, that's great. All right, so we're here on campus. You're going to get a chance to talk to some of our students when this is over.
Yes.
I'm curious, when you think back to your college experience. So, what are some of the moments that were really transformative for you that helped prepare you for the jobs you have now?
Right. Yeah. I mean, as far as preparation for the job, I'm not totally sure. But one of the more meaningful experiences for me was, in Madison, it's such a big place, such a big school. And so there isn't necessarily an obvious opportunity to develop closer relationships with professors until your junior or senior years. I think that's less the situation with a school like UWGB, which is not at all a small school, but a little bit smaller than Madison. So anyway, was not able to develop those connections until a little bit later on in my college career. But Jeremy Suri was a history professor at Madison at the time. Unfortunately, we've lost him to Texas at Austin several years ago. But he was at Madison at the time, and just really, was a fantastic young professor at that time. It was really inspiring. Was writing a big book at the time, and just devoted a lot of time to his students. Answering questions like big ones and small ones, and just really being willing to devote, like I said, a fair amount of time to students who are interested in developing a closer connection with him and understanding history at a deeper level, and so really valued that experience.
Yeah, I asked that question of people a lot, both on the show, but also just whenever I talk to alum, I say, so what are some of the things that stood out? And you're similar to your answer. It's almost always people, right? It's almost always a faculty member that they developed a relationship with. That sometimes they've continued to have that relationship with them, and so it's such an important message, I think, for a lot of modern students who, maybe they're taking their classes mostly online. They're not actually coming to campus very often. That we still got to find ways to build those relationships, and still got to find ways to to connect with people, because it ends up being one of the more important elements of your college experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, one thing that I would recommend to students is not necessarily wait as I did, right? I mean, professors by and large are they're open, right? And they're interested in forming relationships with students. That's why they're in this business.
Right.
And so I would definitely recommend students just to be a bit more proactive than I was, and take advantage of office hours and all the things that are made available to students, because that's what professors are here for. They're interested in inspiring, that next generation of scholars and citizens, right? So that, I think I waited too long to try to, form some of those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's sort of an important skill to develop too, is to make a point of learning to develop those things and to hang on to those things. Because I think even sometimes I think people over time, that you let some of those relationships go, right? Because they take work and you don't continue to. I think about my brother, who he went to Michigan State, and he has continued to have those friendships, and have those friendships really be part of his career trajectory. If he's looking to hire someone, he goes back to some faculty that he knew from the time and says, hey, do you have anybody who would fill this role? It's right. And so I think that's those things, they pay off, and they continue to pay off if you continue to cultivate them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So as you know, we end every episode with 3 questions. So, and I did send you these in advance, which is good, because you were able to remind me what they were before we
partially anyway, right?
So let's go ahead. Who is it that you hope you're inspiring?
Hopefully to some extent that next generation of leaders within the city of Green Bay. Green Bay is a growing and changing community. we're very fortunate that that's the case. And I think it's really important for a new generation of leadership to emerge at the local, state, and federal level. I think that's one of our biggest problems in politics, honestly. So if I can just make it clear that leadership is open to everybody, of goodwill and good intention, that's something that I would love to be kind of known for after I'm out of office.
And how do you combat that too? I mean, because the national level can feel so hostile to people and so toxic, you hear people say all the time, especially young people, sort of, I don't want anything to do with this.
Right.
And so it becomes really important to find ways to combat those perceptions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would encourage people to watch our meetings. They're not always the most exciting, right? They can be a little dry at times, but I think what you'll see if you were to watch like a typical city council meeting, especially these days, because we've got a really good group of council members of diverse opinions, but just, really caring of one another and respectful of different opinions, just to like watch how we operate. Right. Because I think we're able to hash out a lot of disagreements, but more so, arrive at consensus on 90% of the issues. And so for obvious reasons, people tune in to federal politics and to a lesser extent, state politics, but local government really is where, the bulk of policies are enacted that affect people on a day-to-day basis. And so, I feel like we've got a good thing going with our current group of alders here. And so just encourage people to kind of connect with them, pay attention to what we're doing at the local level and see if, one of our boards or commissions might be a good fit for you.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people need role models, and it sounds like there are some good ones at that level, and that maybe you don't necessarily find at the national level right now, or maybe you do, but they're not the ones who jump out.
Right.
They're the same way.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2, book, movie, piece of art, something that inspired you.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm, like I said, librarian background. So I've got a lot of books that I would probably recommend. So maybe a couple, like Parting the Waters by Taylor Branch. Okay. Which is, it's a biography sort of Martin Luther King, but it's more so a biography of the civil rights movement as a whole. Okay. And for obvious reasons, MLK is kind of the central figure in that. But he just does a phenomenal job of exploring the entire landscape of that activist community and, different areas of the country and, different acts of civil disobedience and organizing that was going on in the late 50s going into the 60s. So that's a really fantastic book. Another one, couple of books. It's actually, I think, ultimately going to be a 5-part biography of Lincoln. Oh, wow. But Sidney Blumenthal is the author. And I think I've read 3 of them so far. I think 4 and 5 are still to come. But there's, I think, Jesus and then Lincoln has had like the most books written about them. So, there's a ton out there, and I've read a few. But what's really, I think, well done with these books is just treating Lincoln as he was, which is a pretty typical politician in some respects. He was somebody who was involved in politics from a very, very young age, and was a special person, ultimately. But there's just a lot of him kind of flailing around, figuring things out, devoting a lot of time and energy to the cause that he believed in, which was the Whig Party. Primarily, right, until the Republican Party emerged shortly before the Civil War. But just kind of humanizes Lincoln, which I think is helpful, just as like an elected official myself, as like a politician, right? It's kind of interesting to see Lincoln treated as he was, which was in many respects just, a politician kind of trying to figure things out.
Have you been to the Lincoln Library?
Yes, I have dragged my family there at like a pretty young age, especially for for the kids. So yeah, we went down to Springfield probably like 5 or 6 years ago. Took the train down there, and
oh, cool.
really enjoyed it.
I love it. Yeah. It's so my sister lives in Springfield.
Oh,
and
okay.
So I've been a couple times.
Yeah.
There's actually only so much to do in Springfield.
Right.
So when you go visit, I've gone to a bunch of places multiple times. I guess.
I believe it.
Yeah. And but part of what I love the library there, and part of why I love it is because they do such a fantastic job of sort of integrating like kind of interesting storytelling into what they do. So the movies they have there are incredible. The exhibits are really, really impressive. I mean, it's a great combo of public history and media, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah, I got to figure out how to get back down there for a return visit.
Yeah, so it's great. Number 3 is a piece of advice you would have for people who are still trying to find their way.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, be curious and stay curious.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to reach out to, like we were talking about earlier, to your professors, because I think they're really willing to be mentors to students and offer different pieces of advice. But don't hesitate to reach out to somebody like me either, or if you're interested in getting into the business field, business leaders within the community at Chamber or New North or other private businesses. Not all of those attempts are going to connect. Right. But wasn't Wayne Gretzky? I think you miss every shot you don't take. Right. Yeah. So there's no harm in just expressing an interest and being curious. With leaders, but also just with community-based organizations. There's so many ways for people to get involved and learn more about whatever that field might be that you're interested in. So we just encourage people to express that curiosity and don't be hesitant to do that.
Well, and I find too that that's great advice. I find too that all of those groups you mentioned, I mean, or pretty much all of them will have opportunities for young people to get involved, whether like formally,
right.
Even, that's part of what they're trying to do is cultivate the next generation of people who are interested in doing that thing. And so they've all got those systems kind of built. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if they don't have them built, if there isn't a formal role that like directly connects, my experience has been people are always interested in kind of like brainstorming, and trying to figure out, maybe that's not a good fit here or not that specific role, but like I know this person that's interested in this thing. I think, I'm most knowledgeable about this community. And I feel like that's, something that's a little bit unique about us is we're just a little bit more open and interested in trying to help people down the right path.
Yeah. Excellent. Eric, this has been fantastic. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should? Anything you want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground.
Awesome. So if people do want to connect with you, what's the best way, whether it's social media or email, like how do people find you and follow you and learn about your...
So in person, pretty much every Thursday from 3:30 to 4:30, people can come down to City Hall and just hang out.
All right.
Let me know what's on their mind, questions or concerns or gripes or, potholes that need filling.
Does that come up a lot?
It does a little bit, but yeah, people are just welcome to come down to City Hall and hang out for a bit. Otherwise, the Contact the Mayor form is what it's known as the link on our website. Every single message that comes through that portal comes to my inbox, so I legitimately see everything.
Okay.
So that's another way to get involved. But otherwise, try to be available and accessible around the community. So if you see me, just come over and say hi.
Awesome. That sounds great. We haven't talked about this today, but I think my mom was the mayor of my hometown for
that is right.
28 years. So I'm familiar with the contact, right? The pothole filling, all the stuff, the regular contacts.
And that is an amazing tenure. I'm prohibited actually from reaching that.
Oh, really?
In the city of Green Bay, 12 years is the limit.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Okay.
But even without that, I don't know that I could do it for 28.
Yeah.
That's very impressive.
She retired when she turned 80.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that every 2 years, I got a call from her saying, "What do you think? Should I run again?" And I would say, I think you seem like you still want to. And then, so
that's probably the answer. Yeah.
And so then she turned 80 and said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna throw in the towel." So,
wow.
Yeah, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's an incredible tenure.
Yeah. So, I should have her on the show. So,
definitely.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for being here. This has been fantastic, and I appreciate what you do.
Yeah. Thanks so much for doing this, and thanks for having me on.
All right, I'm here with Kennedy Punky. She is one of the students who works on the show as an editor. How's it going, Kennedy?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I understand you just finished an exam. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. It was yesterday.
Oh, okay. So you didn't have to come here right from the exam.
No,
but, okay.
thankfully. It was a little stressful. But
So how'd it go?
I think it went well. I was trying to keep a positive mindset. So a lot of my classmates are like talking negative about themselves, and I kind of walked in with we got this, guys. Like, don't worry about it. If you think negative thoughts before an exam, you're probably just not going to do good. So I tried to keep it positive, but
very good. I like that attitude a lot. So, all right. So you got to tell me though, what is the class? Who's the instructor? All that.
Yeah. So it's Cases in Communications with Philip Clampett.
Okay.
It's a great class, honestly. It's like pushing me to like be more confident. It's kind of about like public relations, like crises and how to manage them. So yeah, I think the first exam was a good like step for that, to kind of like practice all of those skills. So
excellent. So I'm going to imagine, based on the name and everything you've told me, I'm going to imagine that you get a case study, like you get a situation, and you've got to explain how you would deal with this as their public relations person.
Yes, that is exactly right. Good job. You pass. You pass.
Yes, I nailed it. Good.
The Lantern is brought to you by Good Cause Productions at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. The executive producer is Ryan Martin, and the production manager is Rachel Sankey. The engineer for today's episode is Kennedy Punky, with support from LiveX, and that music you love so much was arranged by our very own Michelle McQuaid-Dewhurst. Special thanks also to our guest, Eric Genrich. If you haven't already, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Keep being amazing.